Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au /dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about...
Councillors and visitors, please remember to switch your electronic devices to silent. Welcome everybody. I'd also like to welcome those viewers who are at home who are watching the meeting via the live stream. Just a reminder that it remains mandatory for everyone to have signed in using the Safer WA QR code or the hard copy register. We'll now move on with the meeting. If I could please ask you all to be upstanding. Deputy Mayor Bianca Sandri, could you please read the opening prayer?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name.
Amen. Thank you. And if I could ask you, Councillor Pratt, if you could read the Acknowledgement of Country.
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect to elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. You can all take your seats. Thanks. Please note that without prior approval, recording of this meeting is prohibited. Members of the public should also note that no action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the council being received. Now brings us to item 1, which is the official opening of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I now declare the council meeting of the 17th of August 2021 open at 7 p.m. Item 2, apologies, I have nil. Item 3, approved leave of absence, I have nil. Now brings us to item 4, disclosure of interest. There are quite a few, as it's quite a large agenda and it covers a couple of committee meetings. I'll start with the ones I have listed. From Audit Committee, I have nil. From Planning and Development Committee, Councillor Joe Ferranti declared an impartial interest in item 12.2 DS3, as the owner is known to him. Councillor Suzanne Migdale declared an impartial interest in item 12.2 DS3 as the applicant is known to her. Councillor Felicity Farrelly declared an impartial interest in item 12.2 DS4 as this item is not dealing with financial or individual properties. It is a proposal to develop instrumentality to manage the development approvals and DCP transfer. No developments are being proposed for the development contribution plan. It is a change of the planning authority. Councillor Stephanie Proud declared an impartial interest in item 12.2 DS5 as she is a social member of the Wembley Downs Tennis Club and has met with a number of Eltham Street residents to discuss planning process with officers in attendance. Myself declared an impartial interest in item 12.2 PRSE1 as I have met with club representatives. Director of Infrastructure Michael Littleton declared an impartial interest in item 12.2 PRSE1 as he is a non-playing member of the Mount Lawley Golf Club. Councillor Chris Hatton declared an impartial interest in item 12.2 item 9.3 as he is a board member of the Balcatta High School. For Council this evening, I have disclosed an impartial interest in item 12.2 DS4 as my mother lives on the edge of the Scarborough development boundary. Councillor Elizabeth Reid disclosed an impartial interest in item 12.2 DS5 as she is a social club member. Councillor Felicity Farrelly disclosed an impartial interest in item 12.2 DS5 as she has had discussions with tennis club personnel on this matter. Councillor Felicity Farrelly disclosed an impartial interest in item 13.1 as she is a member of JDAP but will not be on the panel for this item. Councillor Felicity Farrelly disclosed an impartial interest in item 13.2 as she will be a member of the JDAP that considers this item. I also have disclosures from Councillor Chris Hatton on 18.1, the naming of parks and reserves, and impartial as Dan Luciff is known to him. Item 13.2, the proposed mixed-use development, impartial, as Councillor Caddy has attended a function hosted by the Too Big for Trig group. Councillor Sandri on item 12.2 DS4 on normalisation and impartial as she sits on the Stirling rep on the LRC at the MRA committee. And item 12.2 DS2, the HPA policy and impartial as she owns property in Englewood. And Councillor Perkoff on 18.1 naming requests of parks and reserves, again as the family is known to him. And I have one from Councillor Reid impartial on 15.1 and 13.2 as Councillor Reid is also a JDAP member. Sorry, 13.1 that might have been. Was that right? Yes. Sorry, 13.1. Yes, Councillor Sandri.
Thank you. Can I just get confirmation from the city that I am not a JDAP member yet? Alternate, I should put.
No, that's okay. Yes, you're not. All right. Oh, there's more? Sorry, Councillor Spagnolo.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I have two declarations this evening. 12.2 DS/3. This is the rezoning proposal. I have an impartial interest. The nature of the interest is also that I'm distantly related to the applicant. Item 18.1, the park naming request. I also have an impartial interest in this one, as the family is also known to me.
Thank you, Councillor. Yep, Councillor
Thank
Thornton.
you, Mr Mayor. I've got two interests to declare. Item 13.1, 88 Roberts Road, impartial interest, I live in the area. And item 12.2 CF1, the scheme amendment 1114 Herdsman Glendalough, I also live in the area.
Thank you. Councillor Ree, I think you indicated.
Yes, please, just clarification. I actually did send them in last week, but something must have gone electronically. You did 13.1 is an impartial.
I've just read that one out.
13.2.
Yes, I've read those out.
You did
Yep.
that. Thank you.
Yep, they're on the record. If you can do the proper paperwork, we've got it somewhere? Oh, good. Yep, it's done. Good. Councillor Lagan?
Yes, I'll also declare 12.2 DS2 as I own property in the area.
Thank you. Was there Councillor Migdale?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have two declarations this evening, the first being 12.2 CF3, planning for Karrinyup, as I am a JDAP member, and the second being 13.2, proposed mixed use lot number 1, house number 331, West Coast Drive, Trig, as I am a JDAP member, and I'll hand this form in now.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Councillor Ree, another one?
My apologies, I forgot the Karrinyup one because I am a JDAP member as well, but I'm not.
Thank you. Noted. Well done, councillors. Look, it's a very large agenda with a lot of items across the whole of Stirling, so I wouldn't be surprised if a couple more come up as we go through the agenda this evening anyway. Councillor Thornton?
Yes, I'm just seeking clarification on an item I've declared an impartial interest in. The local planning scheme amendment change 114, because I live in the area, I'm declaring an impartial interest. Because is that fine?
That's fine. I think it's an interesting comment, but it's okay to declare it if you're unsure. Mr Blanchard?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. That would depend on how close to the property you live, and if you live adjacent to the property.
But it's not adjacent to the property. Oh, this is a Herdsman Glendalough. Yeah. So that's,
thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, in relation to Herdsman Glendalough, it will be considered to be an interest in common with all ratepayers, as there is a significant number of properties in that area.
Thank you. There we go. Item 5, petitions. Councillors, do you have any unverified petitions you would like to present this evening? Councillor Ree.
Thank you. To the Mayor and the Councillors of the City of Stirling, we, the undersigned, do respectfully request that the Council refuse the development, as those undersigned object to the development of the childcare premises located at 159 Hale Road and 24 Unwin Avenue, Wembley Downs, for the following reasons. Consultation. With ratepayers and residents who live in close proximity to the site were not informed of consultation period, which was very short, under the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulation 2015, the views of the community are one of the considerations by the local government in the determination of planning applications. Number 2, the setbacks, access, egress, visual amenity, privacy, streetscape, pedestrian car safety and significant noise issues are already being compromised at that location. 3, if this does not meet the acceptable outcomes as listed in Volume 2 of the State Planning Policy 7.3 with regard to many issues that affect good planning and the amenity of the existing area. Number 4, site coverage and building height. Large plot ratio is too big for the site. Large-scale buildings of nearly 400 square metres is not appropriate or in line with the streetscape of a residential area and the character of the area and the design WA planning scheme. 5, overshadowing to adjacent existing residents, which would affect solar panels and the health and well-being of users and the community in general. Traffic. Hale Road is already congested, a main distributor road for 6 local schools. A truck route is already dangerous with lots of accidents. The corner of Unwin and Hale Road is a blind corner that is a double parking, school, drop-off and pick-up zone currently. 7, parking and parking bays with 27 car parking bays proposed on site, of which 12 would be visitors' bays that would predominantly be utilised at the same time, causing more congestion on the road, more street parking on the local side street, which is also a safety issue, and there is insufficient parking now for existing school users. And number 8, the cumulative impacts arising from the physical, design, car parking, traffic, noise, together are such that the proposed development is ill-suited to what might reasonably be able to be accommodated and therefore is incompatible with its content as per the West Australian State Administrative Tribunal ruling number 63. And my apologies. And there is 26 unverified petitions.
Thank you, councillor. Are there any other unverified petitions this evening? If not, can I have a mover and a seconder to receive those petitions, please? Move Councillor Ree, seconded Councillor Proud. And if we can just go to the vote, please. Just to receive the petitions. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Brings us to item 6, responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice. And the public question time responses in previous council meeting were published in the minutes of that meeting. One question requires a further response, which will be provided in the agenda of the council meeting to be held on the 31st of August 2021. And now, item 7, public question time. We've got quite a few tonight to enable all questions to be asked and responded to without the need for multiple extensions of time. If I could please request a mover and a seconder for the motion that in accordance with clause 5.7.12 of the City of Stirling's Meeting Procedures Local Law 2009, public question time be extended for the time needed to respond to all these questions from members of the public who have registered this evening. Move Councillor Meekdale, seconded Councillor Sandri, and just if you can vote, please, councillors. Just Councillor Spagnola and Thornton. Thank you, and that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. And that brings us to public question time. We have got quite a few questions this evening. If you can please try to keep them as brief and succinct as possible by getting your point across, it would be much appreciated, as we have an extremely large agenda this evening. And I'm sure you're very interested in some of the items on that agenda. If we can start with Robert Mitchell. Is Bob Mitchell here this evening? No, he's not here. Mr. Mitchell's questions will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting, and his questions will have a written response provided also in those minutes. Roy Burton, are you there? If you'd like to come forward, please. Mr. Burton, just your name and your suburb, please. Oh, sorry, yeah, just on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see the button and the red light.
Okay.
Yeah. Great.
I refer to the revised...
Sorry. Yeah, that's all right.
Roy Burton, 0331...
Just your suburb's fine.
Okay, Trigg.
Thank you.
I refer to the revised proposal for the Trigg Local Centre site and wish to express concern about the cumulative impact of the height, bulk and scale of the development on the overshadowing impacts. The recommendation of the draft RAR is deficient in that it does not include the contravention of overshadowing standards as a reason for refusal. I ask the following questions. How is it reasonable for the draft RAR to conclude that, on balance, the development achieves the element objectives of SPP 7.3 in respect to orientation when it states that the application proposes a maximum overshadowing of 45.1% in lieu of the permitted 19.5%.
Thank you. Mr. Rodich.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Burton, for the question. As detailed in the City's RAR, the local planning framework has recently changed due to LPP 4.2 having effect as of the 17th of December 2020. The City's assessment of the proposed height, bulk and scale has resulted in 3 recommendations for refusal. The planning framework has not changed with respect to orientation, and therefore the City's assessment of overshadowing has been carried out against the element objectives of the R codes. The City has considered the proposed shadow and the nature of the impacted areas on the adjoining properties as outlined in the RAR.
Mr. Burton.
Second question. Given that that overshadowing was raised as a matter of concern by JDAP and a reason for their refusal of the original proposed design, when the revised design now only achieves a reduction in impact from 46% under the previous proposal to 45.1% of the revised proposal, why is this not included as a specific item in Council's recommendation for refusal?
Mr. Rodich.
Thank you, Mayor. The application has been recommended for refusal for 3 reasons in respect to height, bulk and scale. The specific element of overshadowing was deemed to satisfy the element objectives. That's not to say that the development doesn't have an impact on bulk and scale onto adjoining properties, and therefore they were deemed reasons for refusal for the application. The cumulative impact of those elements.
I don't have a third question.
Thank you, Mr. Burton.
Thank you.
Wayne Blakeney.
Wayne Blakeney, Trigg. Mr. Mayor, councillors and city officers, thank you for the opportunity. And Mr. Irwin, as I said prior, I'd just like to set a little bit of a context for some of the questions that will be raised this evening. Given that this proposal has been before the JDAP panel on a number of occasions, the Too Big for Trigg group and the local community feels that there's a danger that the JDAP members have looked at numerous submissions, and human nature could very well result in only a brief review rather than a detailed analysis of the RAR report. We can commend the city officers and the council on a very detailed report in refusing this application. We feel it's far stronger than the initial one, and we thank the city for that. Hence, we seek, however, some specific additions to just the summary, so that if panel members, given that they may be busy, there may be other things on, they may grab this the evening before, we just felt that it would, if there was some specific additions to the summary of reasons for refusal, it would aid in very clearly outlining to the JDAP members that very little has changed with this new proposal, and hence the questions that will be raised this evening are purely raised on the option of having these just clearer in that summary. My question, therefore, given that plot ratio was definitely one of the things, and that is purely a reflection of the bulk and scale and the cumulative effect of the concessions being sought by this developer, the RAR references refusal being based on a recent SAT precedent in planning law, specifically the BHY case in Nedlands, and that's outlined in the RAR report. My question is, given this quoted SAT decision related to a proposal on an R80 zoned site, where the said site abutted other R80 zoned sites and had a plot ratio of 1.7 compared to 1.37 being sought...
1.17, I think it's... I'm just helping you out there.
Sorry, the plot ratio is 1.17. The plot ratio on the new revised development application is 1.37 for the Trig site. Can these plot ratio numbers be included in the city's RAR report summary as a specific reason for refusal, particularly given that basically nothing has changed from the last reason for refusal?
Sure. Mr. Roddick?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Blakeney, for the question. The refusal reasons in the city's RAR relate to the failure of the proposed development to comply with the relevant planning legislation, specifically in regards to the proposed height, bulk and scale. The quantitative and qualitative assessment of the proposed development is comprehensively detailed in the body of the city's RAR. The council will consider the officer's assessment and the RAR tonight, and it will be up to council to decide whether or not they support the officer's recommendation or add reasons to or not to the recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
No
Blake.
further questions, thank you.
Richard Elliott, please. Thank you, sir. Just your name and suburb.
Yes, Richard Elliott, Trig. I refer to the revised proposal for the Trig local centre site and wish to express concern about the cumulative impact of the street setbacks on the bulk and scale of the development. The recommendation of the draft RAR is deficient in that it does not specifically include the contravention of street setback standards as a reason for refusal. I ask therefore the following questions. Firstly, how is it reasonable for the report to conclude that the development achieves the design intent for street setbacks when it contravenes the 6 metre setback requirement on both street frontages?
Mr. Roddick?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Elliott. In respect to street setbacks, the development is considered to facilitate streetscape continuity, and this is further outlined in the city's RAR.
Mr. Elliott?
My second question is, does the council accept that the cantilever design of the first and second stories, which infringe into the street setback requirement by between 1.8 and 2.9 metres, contributes significantly to the excessive bulk and scale of the building?
Mr. Roddick?
The city's assessment of the proposal has resulted in a recommendation for a refusal, with 2 reasons being that of bulk and scale.
Thank you. Mr. Elliott?
And thirdly, considering the above contraventions of the street setbacks, why is it not included as a specific item in council's recommendation for refusal?
Thank you. And Mr. Roddick?
As I answered previously, there are aspects of this development that officers have determined meet the planning framework. However, overall, the development was not considered to satisfy elements in respect to height, bulk and scale.
Thank you for your questions. Neil Teo. Just your name and suburb, please.
Neil Teo, Inglewood. Just for context, I'm the applicant of item 13.1.
Thank you.
Just 3 brief questions. Is council aware that the applicant and the developer proponent for the subject 88 Robert Street is also the same applicant and developer proponent for the abutting Lot 11, house number 65 Edward Street, Osborne Park, which has already commenced development?
Mr. Rodich.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Ter, for the question. Yes, the city is aware that the applicant and the developer are the same, and by that comment, the council will understand that now.
Question 2, is council aware that the proposed development on 88 Robert Street has voluntarily sacrificed 195 square metres of land, which would otherwise be attributed to building floor space in order to retain 2 existing ficus trees?
Thank you, Mr. Teo, and the retention of the 2 significant trees has been addressed in the council report and the RAR.
Thank you. And final question, is council aware that should this proposal be supported by the council and ultimately approved by the Metro Inner North JDAP, it would result in a highly activated streetscape to both Edward and Robert Street?
Thank you. Mr. Rodich.
Thanks, Mr. Ter. Streetscape activation is addressed in the city's responsible authority report, which is attached to the council agenda tonight.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter Pagnology, please. I didn't pronounce that very well. My apologies. That was. Do you know?
You've had a few opportunities to practice.
My apologies. When I saw it, I remembered how I pronounced it last time.
Good evening. My name is Peter Pagnozzi,
and
I live in Trigg. I refer to the revised proposal for the Trigg Local Centre site and wish to express concern about the proposed change of use to an office. Whilst being a permitted use, an office provides limited opportunity for social interaction by the community and does not align with the local centre zone objective of meeting day-to-day needs of the local community. So I have 2 questions. Firstly, why does the draft RAR report not have regard for the objectives of a local centre zone in assessing the suitability of an office?
Thank you. Mr. Rodich.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The simple answer, Mr. Pagnozzi, is that an office is a permitted use, so there's no discretion sought in relation to that use. It is allowed. As you can see in our responsible authority report, we have commented that we don't think this is the best use to activate the site. However, it is a permitted use.
What's interesting, my second question, having in the developer's own words, their words, not mine, surveyed the community and concluded that the overwhelming majority wanted a cafe to stay. In such a unique oceanfront setting, how will an office best meet the needs of the local community?
Thank you. Mr. Rodich.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Pagnozzi, as outlined in the RAR, it's unlikely that it would meet all the needs of the community. However, as I've stated before, it is a permitted land use.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Lawson. Just your name and suburb, please.
Michael Lawson, Trigg. I too refer the revised proposal for the Trigg Local Centre and express my concern about the cumulative impact on the rear setbacks and on the bulk and scale of the development. The recommendation of the draft RAR is deficient and it does not include the contravention of rear setback standards as a reason for refusal. I therefore ask, is the Council aware that the rear setback requirement is significantly contravened, as it should be a minimum of 6 metres as per LPP 4.2 and not 3 metres as stated in the draft RAR?
Mr. Rodich.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Lawson, for the question. The setback for a corner lot to the side and rear boundaries is 3 metres under the LPP 4.2. The city's assessment of the side and rear setbacks is further explained in the responsible authority report. It's 3 metres, not 6.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll take that on notice, but given that the proposal does not comply with either the 3 metre or 6 metre rear setback requirement, how is it reasonable that report concludes that the development achieved the design intent of rear setbacks?
Thank you. And look, the city's assessment of that proposal, as been said before, is in the officer's report this evening and contained within the RAR, and council will consider that item this evening.
Okay. And thirdly, can I just ask that if it is, if that item is considered, whether it can be included as an amendment to that report?
Sure, and council will obviously consider that report tonight and consider the request of the community on that.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Craig Muir. Is Craig here? Yep, sorry, didn't see you. Just your name and suburb, thanks.
Craig Muir, Trigg. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to refer to the revised proposal for the Trigg local centre site and wish to express concern regarding the cumulative impact of the height, bulk and scale of the proposed development, which results in excessive overshadowing of the neighbouring properties. I point out that as a local Trigg resident and a principal architect with GHD Woodhead, I've been engaged by the Too Big for Trigg group to undertake an independent assessment of the overshadowing and the loss of sunlight resulting from the proposed development. This has revealed that the maximum overshadowing is over 44% and results in a significant 25% reduction in average total sunlight hours between a compliance scheme and the proposed development. I would like to ask the following questions. Why did the city's assessment of the maximum overshadowing of 45.1%, which is over 2.2 times the permitted percentage area, not result in the specific reason for refusal of the application?
Mr Rodich, please.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks, Mr Muir. As I've outlined previously before, the city officers have carried out an assessment against the element objectives and have considered the shadow cast in respect of the impacted areas of the adjoining properties as outlined in the Responsible Authority report.
Okay. My second question. Mrs Burton submitted our draft GHD report and assessment as part of her objection to the revised proposal. Will Council take into consideration the conclusions of the GHD study in respect of loss of sunlight and inappropriate bulk to amend the RAR to recommendation and include excessive overshadowing impacts as a specific reason for refusal in the summary?
Mr Rodich.
The city's RAR includes a summary of the matters raised in submissions, and council will consider the RAR tonight. Submitters can also provide supporting material via presentation requests to council and the JDAP should they wish to.
All right, thank you. That's my question.
Thank you. Messina Robinson, please.
Messina Robinson from Trigg. I'm also speaking about 331 West Coast Drive. My first question is, the development of R80 medium density is inconsistent with the state government's planning policy 4.2 activity centres. The SPP recognises that small local centres are intended for delicatessens and convenience stores that provide for the day-to-day needs of local communities. The development of apartments at medium density R80 is intended for transit-oriented development close to train stations and high-frequency bus routes, which Trigg does not have. And the city's own local planning strategy states that it supports higher density development in activity centres and along identified corridors as part of detailed planning or place-based planning studies, and it intends to protect areas coded R20 and below for larger households and green space. So my question is, why hasn't the conflict with the SPP and local planning strategy been recognised in its scheme, RAR report and recommendations?
Thank you. Mr Rodich.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks for the question, Ms Robinson. The subject application is for a development application and not a scheme amendment proposal, meaning that the appropriateness of the current zoning of the land and the associated scheme provisions that set out the density coding are not matters for consideration of the council or JDAP as part of this development application. The subject site is zoned local centre, and development and residential development in this zone is subject to the residential R80 requirements as prescribed by the city's scheme. The density and built form of the proposed development has been considered in the city's RAR.
Okay, thank you. The layout, my second question is, the layout of the proposed office is essentially the same as that previously proposed for the restaurant on the site, highlighting the possibility that it may be subject to a change of use application in the future. Will the community have an opportunity to comment on any proposed conversion of the floor area to cafe/restaurant?
Thank you. Mr Rodich.
Thank you, Mayor. Very unlikely, Ms Robinson. A restaurant is a permitted use, so under the planning development regulations, development approval will not be required from one P use to another, other than if works are proposed, and therefore I'd have to consider that at that time.
So traffic issues, parking would not be considered?
No.
And my final question is, will the council acknowledge that R80 density development is inappropriate in the low density suburb of Trigg, and that consideration of R80 should be the subject of a future scheme review with appropriate community consultation?
Thank you. And Mr Rodich, please.
As answered previously before, the subject application is for a development proposal and no scheme amendment proposal at this point in time. So there will be no consideration or community consultation in respect to the zoning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jeannie Brewer. Thank you. Just your name and suburb, please.
Jeannie Brewer, Corrine. Just regarding the student parking that's been discussed, could I just ask, please, with the general parking, the law of 2014, clause 323B indicates that you can't obstruct a right-of-way, private drive or carriageway, or so close to deny a vehicle reasonable access to or egress from the right-of-way, private drive or carriageway. Does that apply to us as residents with the issues that we're experiencing at the moment with the student parking?
Sure. Mr Littleton. Sorry, Mr Quirk.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. Yes, the parking local law does apply to all local roads throughout the city, including those in Corrine. The two clauses that you mentioned are indeed what parking officers use to enforce that local law. However, when it comes to obstruction of crossovers, our parking officers quite often do show some discretion. If a crossover is completely blocked, they'll issue a caution or an infringement. If it's partially blocked, they'll generally determine if it's a matter that requires enforcement or not. Having said that, given the issues that are experienced in and around Corrine High School at the moment, it isn't considered appropriate to still apply that discretion. So I'm certainly happy for one of our parking officers to make contact with you, clarify the issue you've got at your particular address, and to make sure that that level of discretion is no longer applied.
Thank you. Also, because of what's happened this year, and we live near a bend in Holmesville Crescent, the City of Stirling was very kind, and they did put yellow lines on our road near where we live because of the cars were parking and making it extremely dangerous for residents to back out. And this has proved to be really good. So I've been thinking about it, and is it possible that a template could be made for the streets that are having problems with the parking? There's been suggestions of poles with signs on them and things like that. But what about yellow lines? You know, can this be utilised in this situation? It would be quick, easy and obvious.
It would be, but there's also unintended consequences. I'll get Mr Littleton to provide a response for you to outline this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. Look, the provision of yellow lines is only considered when parking is not permitted at any time of the day, such as approaches to intersections or near bends and crests in the road, which is what you're seeing in Holmesfield. If yellow lines were installed at all locations, it would prevent on-street parking at all times of the day and all days of the week, including parking by visitors and residents. This is not the preferred solution when parking can be safely accommodated on local roads. We certainly appreciate that there's a broader issue, and as you know, our officers, our ward councillors, and state members, as well as the Education Department, are looking to meet to resolve this issue as best we can.
Thank you. I'd like to just ask, this week in particular has been quite distressing on the subject of the parking, as it looks like the City of Stirling are really responsible to do something about it, which I'm sorry to give you that news, but the school is not going to do anything, and unfortunately, our government, I don't think, is going to do anything. If you consider what was mentioned this week on radio and online, the government don't appear to have the facts, and there's been comments that the additional 85 parking bays that's going to be in the development could ease the situation. Well, that is not right. It is not going to ease the situation because the school is not going to have any parking on their grounds. So has the City of Stirling really got something that they're going to help us with this problem? You know, like, this is going on for weeks and months, and what can you do for us, please?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And the city did take on board comments, and I know the councillors have been working closely with some of the residents in that area. We have since made contact with the principal and the P&C, and we have a meeting coming up to work through with them, and we've already committed some of the residents who came to the last council meeting that we'd inform them of the response we got going forward. We're also waiting for confirmation of details of a meeting with a state member, Mr Paul Lilburn, MLA, and from relevant state government agencies who we've also reached out to work to support the residents.
Thank you.
Peter Peebles, please. Thank you, sir.
My name is Peter Peebles and I live in Corrine. Mr Mayor, councillors, council staff, thank you for allowing me the opportunity. On Tuesday the 3rd of August, Mr Sean Sibma, MLC, Deputy Leader of the Opposition in the Upper House of State Parliament, gave a speech outlining residents' concerns regarding the students parking in residential streets surrounding Corrine Senior High School. Mr Sibma had joined several local residents in seeing the issues for himself that the residents have been experiencing. With meeting of the residents, Mr Sibma made 4 commitments or promises. 1, that he would communicate residents' concerns to the Mayor, which I believe he has done.
I can confirm he has.
He had made a commitment, a promise, to liaise, communicate with the 2 Hammersley Ward councillors, which I believe he has done. He also made a commitment, a promise, to liaise, communicate with the headmaster of Corrine Senior High School, which he has done, and he promised to make a speech in Parliament outlining residents' concerns, which he has done. Now there's a novelty, isn't it? A politician actually keeping 4 promises. And we are grateful for him. His speech went for about 7 minutes, and it's easily accessible through Carlo Perkoff's page that he has set up and on the Corrine Senior High School website. And in closing he said, and I quote Sean Sibma directly, "I invite anybody to walk along these streets during a school day and tell me that this situation is acceptable, because clearly it is not." Is council aware of Mr Sibma's speech? And if you have heard it, do you agree with him that the parking situation is not acceptable?
Thank you, Mr Peebles, and I can't answer for council if they've heard the speech. I certainly haven't heard the speech, but I'm aware he has done one. But as we have previously indicated, we have committed already to meet with yourself and other residents once the meeting with the school has occurred.
That's fine.
And I'm happy to walk the streets with you.
Second question. On Thursday the 12th of August edition of Perth Now, which I believe is online only, an Education Department spokesperson is quoted as saying, and again I'll quote directly, "Parking bays were never allocated for students at any public secondary school, but an area might be designated to students if there was space." Clearly, this is misinformation at best and deception at worst, as the headmaster has repeatedly stated that there will not be allocated parking for students, and the Education Department would be fully aware of that. In the same Perth Now article, the Department of Education Infrastructure Executive Director Anna Brown said as Careen Senior High School was a large school, there would naturally be traffic congestion issues, particularly during drop-off and pick-up times, which of course is not the issue that the residents are addressing. With the new car park set to be completed by the start of the next school year, we expect the inconvenience to be temporary.
If I can ask you to get to a question, please, sir.
Right. Okay. The headmaster has repeatedly said there will be no student parking allocated to the high school, not now, not tomorrow, not ever. So for the Education Department to come out and say this is temporary and there will be, the traffic congestion will be eased, again, is bordering on deception. To compound this, the Minister for Education peddled the same line.
Sorry, sir, I do need to ask me a question of what we can do.
Okay.
Thanks.
Is Council aware of these statements, i.e. from the Minister for Education in a radio interview last Sunday morning on 6PR, and on the Perth Now Education Department spokespersons, who I have quoted? Will Council acknowledge that the views stated by spokespersons and the Minister do not reflect a true situation relating to students clogging up residential streets which were never designed to be car parks?
I can commit that we will find out. We'll get our media monitors to ensure that we have all those statements, and we'll take on board the fact that we understand that the issue that the residents have isn't about the dropping off and the picking up, it's about the blocking the streets during the day, and we'll take that up with the principal.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that Council is fully aware that this other misinformation
we understand.
Is misinformation. On the 1st of August, a letter was sent in response to residents being told that surveys would be initiated to get data regarding residents concerned. The response says in part, and this is my words to the city officers, what the observations will not show are the issues that the residences are experiencing. Your survey will not show that rubbish trucks find it difficult to get between parked cars. Your survey will not show that some residents' rubbish bins are not emptied because the students park in front of some bins which are placed on their verge. Your survey will not show that some residents cannot exit their driveways safely because of restricted vision. Neither will it show that in some cases residents cannot get their caravans, trailers out of their driveways when required because their properties' access is significantly compromised. The headmaster at a recent P&C meeting,
Again, I'm sorry, sir. I know it's an important issue to yourself, but we have got a lot of questions, so if I could ask you to please get to a question.
Will Council take our concerns very seriously, as a mere traffic survey will not show the residents' concerns, and it is clear that the school can do very little. The Education Department is trying to divert the issue. Our local member has gone to ground on this issue, and he will not, despite repeated efforts, respond to any communication by residents, despite making promises to do so, and residents' frustrations are rising.
Thank you, sir. And yes, we do take your concerns seriously, and the residents. It's also been communicated well to the city. We understand your concerns regarding the parking surveys as well, and I can tell you the officers take it very seriously, and they do spend a lot of time out there to ensure that they understand the issues that residents are having as well, and will continue to do so.
Thank you.
Peter Ellis, please. Thank you, sir.
Peter Ellis, Careen. Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors all, hard-working employees and fellow ratepayers. Can you please advise if it is more financially viable to employ contractors to mow and fertilise the council parks than to employ council employees?
Yes, Mr Littleton, please.
Look, I might take that question. Thank you for the question, Mr Ellis. I might take that question on notice so that I can give you a more considered response. Generally, I would say that we use a combination of both internal staff and external contractors for various services. But I'll take that question on notice and give you a response.
And I can tell you, Mr Ellis, councillors have discussed that at length during the budget process and the service review process. And it is probably a lot more complicated than it seems on the surface in terms of more than man hours. It's about equipment and specialised equipment at that that's also used in insurances.
Yeah, nice tractors and mowers behind them. Yep. After what period of working time do employees earn their long service leave holidays?
Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Mr Ellis. That's 10 years.
Mr Ellis?
Sorry?
10 years.
10 years. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay. In the annual report, it mentions that there's over 1,100 plus employees. Is that correct?
Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, Mr Ellis, that's correct. And I appreciate your question from last week, which we'll provide to you
Yes,
week.
thank you. Sorry to cause so much work. Thank you very much.
No, you're not, Mr Ellis. Simon Wheeler.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Simon Wheeler, Scarborough. My first question on the iconic offices in Trigg has already been asked, but I have a spare. I refer to item 12.2 DS1 and the rezoning of the Dianella Public Library to RAC2, high density, and ask if the City of Stirling has received approaches from any parties interested in purchasing or developing the city's Dianella Library site, and if so, can you please provide details?
Sure. I am not aware of any. No indication. There is. That's a no.
Thank you. Item 12.2 CF3 tonight regarding Karrinyup. At the special electors meeting regarding Karrinyup earlier this year, I asked when, will we be in the same place in another 6 years' time? I don't recall the answer, but given draft SPP 4.2, when gazetted, will require the creation of a precinct structure plan for future development of the Karrinyup Shopping Centre, why is the City dismissing this option so readily? Why is the City proposing that we do not proceed with a structure plan, given its similar previous inaction has led to the uncontrolled and ad hoc development allowed by the absence of strategic planning controls?
Thank you. Mr Rodich?
Thanks, Mr Mayor, for the question, and Mr Wheeler. As you're aware, there's a report tonight on the Karrinyup Activity Centre. As part of our initial research and discussions with the Department of Planning, the Department was of the opinion that a structure plan would not be required. The recommendation tonight talks to going out to the community and having a visioning exercise for the centre, and at this moment there's no determination on whether or not a structure plan will be provided through that process. We need to go through that process and work out what the best planning instrument is to deliver the future vision for this locality, and that will be discussed tonight in terms of the way forward, and down the track we will determine which planning instrument we use to control and allow development to occur in the area.
Mr Wheeler?
Draft State Planning Policy 4.2 suggests that will be a precinct structure plan. That will be a requirement. Sorry. Item 12.2 DS4. To Scarborough residents, Mayor Irwin, normalisation of the Scarborough redevelopment scheme area cannot come quickly enough. Since the planned handover date of June 2021, since that date, 3 significantly overdeveloped applications, about 143 stories worth, have been presented to and will probably be approved by Development WA. Given the continual and generous application of contempt wrapped up as discretion by Development WA to your ratepayers, it appears to me that the short timeframes afforded by option 1 of automatic amendment is a no-brainer, given, like Karrinyup, planning in the scheme area is at this time essentially uncontrolled, and neither the Scarborough community nor its infrastructure have any time to spare. A development contribution plan seems to be the sticking point to why normalisation has not yet occurred, but all 3 options that Council have before them tonight require the creation or adoption and modification of a development contribution plan. So my question is, Mayor Irwin, what is preventing the City from commencing work on the creation of a development contribution plan, concurrent with resolving to commence with option 1, and what, if any, real risk to the city does that expose?
Thank you. I'll get Mr Rodich to provide some clarity about the main difference between point 1 and 2.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Mr Wheeler, for the question. By going through option 1 as provided in the report, requires that planning framework to be transferred by the Minister into our scheme. That wouldn't allow for a developer contribution plan to be transferred because the developer contribution plan is a policy and not part of that scheme. In short, that is the answer. It's up to Council to consider those options tonight.
With respect, Mayor, my question was, why can't you do both? Why can't you proceed with option 1 and concurrently produce your own development contribution?
Yeah, no, I understood the question. And Mr Rodich?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I guess the reason why you wouldn't do 1 is that 1 would occur a lot sooner and then wouldn't allow for a complex scheme amendment to introduce a developer contribution plan into the framework, as it would already be in the framework. So the city would lose that opportunity. The report goes into detail about why that is the case, and that's for Council to consider tonight.
Okay. Thank you. And I just want to clarify, I don't think there was ever any date that it was June 2021 that normalisation would be.
That was provided by DPLH, so to me.
Yeah, I'm not. That's right, I wasn't aware of any date, that's why we're going through this process. Mr Rodich, was that an official date?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. There hasn't been an official date. That was discussions with the Development WA and the department that the thought was that normalisation could occur by June 21. However, there was legal advice sought by both Development WA, the department, in regards to the developer contribution plan, and that it couldn't carry through through the standard, or shall we say, the minister's administrative process to normalise the area. So that therefore changed. We've got correspondence from Development WA that the Board of Development WA target is for the end of December 2022. That is a target. There has never been a fixed date because this is a complicated process.
Thank you, Mr Wheeler.
The sooner the better would be better for Scarborough.
Yeah, and that item is on the agenda this evening. Council will consider that. Martin Gribben. Your name and suburb, thanks.
Martin Gribben, Wembley Downs. Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. I'm talking about the Wembley Downs court and light upgrade. I'm a social member of the club, a volunteer, and I also live adjacent to the club which is most impacted. And whilst I'm here on a personal capacity, I can also say for the residents in and around our street, they're not against the upgrade. They just think that more consideration should be given to a relocation. Would councillors consider the proposal that it is premature for the council to approve the Wembley Downs tennis club upgrade, given updated information that the club is aiming for significant clubhouse redevelopment within months? Would council also consider that a far more responsible use of ratepayer monies would be to integrate the court and light upgrade slap bang in the middle of this clubhouse redevelopment on courts 9 to 12, providing a spectator view platform close to the bar and facilities for major games and finals under lights, which would provide a hive of activity, because currently the proposal has curfew restrictions and a last place booking system, which renders the original proposal not as fit for purpose as they hoped to be, as it is relegated to the southwest perimeter of the ground closest to residents.
Thank you for that question. Is that Mr Littleton best to answer that? Yep.
Look, I'll kick off. Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. It's important to say that the city's officers have spent a considerable amount of time ensuring that both the court upgrade and the clubhouse redevelopment are absolutely fit for purpose and will support the growth of the Wembley Downs Tennis Club. The two projects that you speak about are not linked and can and should proceed independently. Upgrades are the court upgrade and lighting project is part funded by CSRFF, and funding is contingent on delivery timeframes. Council made a determination in September of 2020 to support the upgrade of the tennis courts and the lighting project, and that project is proceeding through the approval phase at the moment. The redevelopment of the clubhouse will certainly is going through a design development process at the moment, but will and can potentially take another 2 years to be completed.
Mr Gribben.
Would Council agree to a request for a 3-month moratorium to obtain quotes and do a cost-benefit analysis of relocation to courts 9 to 12? To date, residents have not been provided with a quote recostings, although they were given some figures. We haven't seen any written quotes, and we understand that senior council staff may be open to this approach. Cost, if the club agree on that, cost alone should not be the sole reason to approve the proposal, but also value for money, sustainability, and investing in a vibrant community facility.
Thank you for that question, and Council will consider that item on the agenda this evening. I will get, is it Mr Clerk, to provide a response to you.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. City officers as well as Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industry officers have assessed this project through the CSRFF process and looked at the varying options available and ultimately the business case and proposal put forward by the club. The city concurrently with the development application process has undertaken a review of the options that are available to the club and the costs and generally the pros and cons associated with what has been put forward by the residents versus what has been put forward by the club. And it is considered a reasonable project, obviously subject to decision making by council tonight.
Thank you.
Mr Gribben. Natalie Triantopoulos, please. Thank you. Just your name and suburb.
Natalie Triantopoulos, Osborne Park. Okay. Hello everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. My question is about the activated landscape and what it means to us, the surrounding residents. And that is all. Thank you. I know you've got a lot of time, so.
Yeah, sorry, can you just put the microphone down a bit and just ask the question again?
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is about the activated landscape and what it means to us, the surrounding residents, and that's all. Thank you. Yes, of Roberts Road.
Oh, Roberts, yeah, sorry,
Roberts
I was
Road,
trying
sorry.
to... Yeah, Mr Rodich.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks, Ms Triantopoulos,
Yep.
for the question. Activate means to make something operative or activate an area, so I assume in terms of your question you may be talking about the landscaping on the corner of Edward Street or Roberts
That's correct.
Road, and therefore I guess the word activate means it's got benches under that tree, so it allows users of the warehouse's office to use that space.
And would that be access to the public, the surrounding residents, or not?
Mr Rodich.
The space is enclosed by a small hedge, and it hasn't been, I guess, shown on the plan as an easement and growth for the public at large, so you'd be basically walking on private property.
Okay.
I guess there's an opportunity for the public to see that open space on the corner, and so you do get that streetscape opportunity, but in terms of using the space, really it's going onto someone's property, so it's probably unlikely that the public could use it at large, but that's up to the owner.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Dave Holder. Just your name and suburb, please.
Dave Holder from Careen. Good evening, councillors and mayor. Just wanted to ask, is the council aware that the principal of Careen Senior High School believes that the parking issues caused by students from his school is a council issue and not a school issue or an education department issue?
Look, it's been mentioned by the community before, but we'll certainly be taking that up with the principal when we have our meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ivan Longcar. Just your name and suburb, please.
Good evening, Ivan Longcar, Osborne Park. Thanks for the opportunity to talk.
I'm speaking regarding item 13.1, proposed development at 88 Robert Street, Osborne Park. The soil there is said to be contaminated with hydrocarbons and not suitable for particular purposes. What are the risks of hydrocarbons to residents, both currently and during construction? Clearly, it can't be used for primary schools. I don't know if it's just limited to kids, and that's, high schools wasn't mentioned. Does the stuff become airborne? What will the effects be during construction? When was the last time it was tested? Will testing occur? Things of similar nature.
Sure.
That's my first question.
Mr. Rodich?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the question, Mr. Loncar. I guess comment in respect to the contaminated sites, and more so the Contaminated Sites Act 2003, is the responsibility of the Department of Water, Environment and Regulation, so they would be the best people to answer your questions. I'm happy to provide some further details in that on notice and maybe put you in contact with the officer who we dealt with in terms of referring this application on. Under that Act, any development approval requires comment from that agency.
Okay, so the city does no testing of its own regarding these things, and has no view about contamination and hydrocarbons coming from the soil?
Mr. Rodich?
Mr. Loncar, as I've stated before, as part of consideration of the development application, we are required under the Act to refer this application to the Department of Water, Environment and Regulation, and they are best placed to comment on the suitability of that land use on this site.
Okay, thank you. My second question relates to the intended use of the tenants, if you like, that will be at the development. We currently have a mostly 7 to 4-ish, Monday to Friday, impacts from industry. It's a really cool relationship. They do fairly well. Oh, it's a pain when they spark up at 7 o'clock, but it's fairly okay. So I'm trying to gauge, and I couldn't from the proposal itself, what the potential impacts are, when the allowable hours of business are, or anything like that. And I'm just hoping to gain some insights into that.
Mr. Rodich, you able to provide that, or we have to take that on notice?
Thanks for the question, Mr. Loncar. I'm happy to take that on notice and provide some further details for you, and note that this has been considered by the Joint Development Assessment Panel in approximately 10 days, so I'll be able to give you that information. In terms of conditions of approval, there's no conditions relating to operating hours for an office and warehouse use. I can confirm that tonight.
So it could be 24/7?
So we provide you in writing so we can understand.
And thank you. And please excuse my ignorance, how would I get that information?
We've got your details, I believe, on record this evening.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you. Tonya Poggioli, please. Is that bad? Thank you. Your name and suburb, thanks.
Good evening. My name's Tonya Poggioli and I'm from Wembley Downs.
So apologies because I was nowhere near that on my pronunciation. So apologies.
That's okay. That's okay. Poggioli, yes. Yeah. So my questions relate to the proposed daycare centre, DA 210729. Is council aware that this childcare centre, this proposed childcare centre, is not to benefit local residents, as there are already many existing nearby childcare centres, but for the wider community, and will therefore increase the volume of traffic and add further danger to the main road, which is Hale Road, and the side streets, however, I'm predominantly speaking about Unwin Avenue, as there are already many blind bends and crests causing many and regular near misses, and of which are actually not recorded.
Thank you for your question. Look, I have to advise with this one. One, most of the council aren't aware of it yet because it's still under consideration. So,
sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you please repeat it?
It comes up, I don't know
that's
why,
right.
But anyway.
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
So most of the council aren't aware of it yet. It's also under consideration, I believe, by the city officers. But we'll also have to take your questions. I'll allow you to ask the questions one after the other, but we'll have to take them on notice. The Director of Planning and Development has an impartial interest in respect to this development application, so he won't be able to respond to your answers this evening. But we'll take them on notice and we'll respond in writing. So your next question?
Right. Is Council aware of the increase in impact of the cars and traffic on children's safety on an already dangerous and busy road?
Thank you. And your third question?
My third question, I had to take a screenshot of the,
That's right.
the submission I made before. Will Council be liable if any accidents occur to children or the locals, or any impact in any capacity to affected residents?
Right. Thank you for your questions. And Council will obviously, and officers will take on board the traffic management plans, etc., during the assessment, but we'll certainly provide you a response to all those questions in writing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Collins. Mr. Collins, your name and suburb, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, councillors, officers and residents, ratepayers. Paul Collins of Dianella. Mr. Mayor, is the City of Stirling considering to close or relocate the city's Dianella Public Library? And if so, please provide full details.
Not at the moment. Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, whilst the city is currently preparing a library strategy, that does not include any decision-making on the Dianella Library, certainly doesn't contemplate what Mr. Collins has put forward.
Yeah, we have no knowledge of that, Mr. Collins.
Just asking if you were considering.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Mayor, given that, why is the City of Stirling proposing tonight to rezone the city's Dianella Public Library from District Centre to RAC2 High Density Urban Centre, increasing the building height from 4 stories to 7 stories and increasing the plot ratio by 250% from 1 to 2.5?
Mr. Rodich.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd have to, if I could ask a question, what item is this in relation to?
Item, I refer you to item DS1, item 12.2 DS1, and I specifically refer you to page 51 of tonight's council agenda. On page 51 of tonight's council agenda, 2 properties in the Dianella District Centre are rezoned to high density urban from District Centre. One of them includes the city's own site, the Dianella Public Library. Another site includes of significant area and hectares is the Our Ladies of Assumption Catholic Primary School and Our Ladies of Assumption Catholic Church, also being rezoned from District Centre, 4 stories plot ratio 1, R80 under the District Centre, to RAC2. It's quite clear.
Mr. Collins, we may have to take that one on notice and provide your response in writing.
Well, tonight, this city is going to make a decision whether to refer the city's own public library, and you don't know whether you're rezoning it from 4 stories to 7 stories.
Thanks, Mr. Collins. It's not up for debate at the moment. It will be later on this evening.
Well, and there's another site there that's more than a couple of hectares. Okay, my third question. Given the increase in height on more than a couple of hectares and the city's own site, from 4 stories to 7 stories, nearly doubling, given that the plot ratio is increasing from 1 to 2.5, and given all of the other increased concessions from R80 to RAC2, can the city give an assurance that it complied with the standard or complex amendments in advertising this scheme by erecting a sign in front of these 2 properties for the purposes of rezoning?
Thank you. Mr. Rodich, you're able to provide any advice on the advertising?
Through you, Mr Mayor, Mr Collins, the officers would have carried out the advertising in accordance with the requirements of the planning and development regulations in terms of determining that whether or not it is a standard or complex amendment. Council will debate this report this evening.
My question is, Mr Mayor, and it wasn't answered, can the city please give an assurance that a sign was erected for 42 days for a standard amendment
thanks,
or
Mr.
60
Collins.
days for a complex amendment?
Thanks.
in
Mr
front
Collins,
of
it's
these
not
two
up
properties?
for debate. Mr
I'm
Roddick.
just asking the question.
And it was answered.
What
Thank you,
was
Mr
the
Mayor.
answer?
Mr Collins, the answer is in the report, and it clearly says consultation of Scheme Amendment 115 was undertaken in accordance with the requirements of the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulations 2015 and the City's consultation procedure. So it is consistent with exactly what I just said before.
So you can give an absolute assurance
Mr
tonight
Collins, you've
that
had
a
two answers that have said it is compliant.
that a sign was erected.
Mr Collins, you've had two answers and assurance that it complied.
We'll see.
Are there any other questions this evening? Yes? Just your name and suburb, thanks. Take a seat, thanks.
My name is Janet Patterson. I live in Doubleview. I'm the president of the Wembley Downs Tennis Club. Is the council aware that the club operates on a council-owned reserve for playing tennis and has done for 60 years, and that night tennis has been played there since 1970?
Thank you. That item is on the agenda this evening. I will get officers maybe to provide some comment.
Only just to confirm that is the fact, and yes, we are aware.
Thank you.
Okay, my second question is the council aware that it is not just the prohibitively expensive additional costs of developing the alternative courts suggested by the residents? The same access problems will occur during the project will continue to be a problem for future repairs, maintenance and resurfacing, and there are also many additional problems with the operation of these courts into the future, which that the club does not consider to be the best possible courts to convert for the future of the club from a sustainability point of view.
Thank you. And officers have already provided some comment around the timing of those developments and have debated it at council, and it is an item on the agenda this evening.
Okay, I've got one more question.
Yes. Yep.
Is the council aware that this proposal has the support of Tennis West, as they know that night tennis facilities are the key to promoting tennis and active recreation in the community, and that many clubs have only remained financially viable by developing more night play facilities?
And yes, council is aware of that, and the letter formed part of the council report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that someone else who'd like to? Yes? Just your name and suburb, please.
Cretia Griffin from Wembley Downs. In relation to someone's earlier question, what do you mean that the Director of Planning and Development has an impartial interest in relation to the childcare development DA 21/1029?
Exactly what I said. There is an impartial interest that will be declared.
Okay. Meaning?
Meaning that he cannot answer the questions or be dealing with it tonight.
Because of?
Impartiality.
Are they an investor in the project?
No, these will be declared.
In writing?
Yes. Your questions, please.
Okay, you'll get back to us in writing as to
Yes.
why they're impartial?
Yeah,
Okay,
it'll
I'll
appear.
wait for that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, is there anyone else indicating? That brings us to the end of public question time. Now takes us to item 8, application for leave of absence. Councillors, are there any requests for leave of absence? Councillor Spagnolo.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. It's for the committee meeting next Tuesday. Although I'm not on that particular committee, I do seek leave of absence, please.
Thank you. Noted. Councillors, any other indications? Then item 9, confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I please have a mover and a seconder to accept the council minutes of the 3rd of... Sorry. Sorry. Can I please have a mover and a seconder for the leave of absence? Let's move Councillor Thornton, seconder Councillor Lagan, and just go to the vote, please. Might just go a show of hands, councillors. That is unanimous. Thank you. Confirmation of minutes, item 9. Councillors, can I please now have a mover and a seconder to accept the council minutes of the 3rd of August 2021. Move Councillor Perkoff, seconder Councillor Caddy, and a show of hands. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Announcements by the presiding member. I have nil, but Councillor Spagnuolo, I believe you have a brief announcement.
Once again, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I had the pleasure of representing the city at the WA Italian Club on Sunday. The nature of the gathering was to launch a book called Journey into Memory. It was actually launched by the author, Enzo Astoni, and it's essentially to do with the culture and the tradition of a town called Ucria, which is about 130 kilometres east of Palermo, which is the capital of Sicily. So I was there along with a number of other special guests, including the member for Balcatta, David Michael. There was also the Bishop of, or former Bishop of Geraldton, Justin Bianchini, and a host of other distinguished guests, gathering probably about 380 people. And the whole purpose of the exercise was, as I say, to launch this book and promote the culture. It's interesting that it came out on the day that the town of Ucria in the south of Italy has a population, it's up in the mountain, it has a population of 1,000 people. However, over the years, about 2,000 people have actually come to Western Australia. I don't know the maths there, I couldn't work it out myself, but the interesting thing is that the 2,000 people mostly reside in the city of Stirling. So it was quite appropriate that there was city representation there. So I was very pleased to be there on behalf of the city, and thank you, Mr Mayor, for the opportunity to represent you on the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil. Item 12, reports and recommendations of committees. I would now like, with your indulgence, to bring forward item 13.2, which is the yellow site. Well, it's not really. So this is a proposed mixed-use development, 6 multiple dwellings and 1 commercial tenancy, Lot 1, house number 331, West Coast Drive, Trigg, on page 237. As there's a fair bit of interest, we thought it appropriate to bring this forward. There is a recommendation on... Sure. So noting that Councillor Migdale and Councillor Farrelly have left the room as they are sitting on JDAP, Councillor Caddy has indicated.
I have an alternative recommendation, please, Mr Mayor, if I can have it up on the...
Sure, can we? Yeah. Thanks. There it is.
Okay. So item 1 is as per the officer's recommendation, which is that Council endorses the City's Responsible Authority report to the Metro Inner North JDAP, which recommends refusal of the proposed mixed-use development. Number 2, that Council reiterates the reasons for refusal by the Metro Inner North Joint Development Assessment Panel from its meeting on the 23rd of March 2021, specifically in relation to the design, scale and massing of the proposed building, which manifests in unacceptable impacts in terms of overshadowing and plot ratio, as no real changes have been made to the proposal since this meeting. 3, that Council advises the Metro Inner North Joint Development Assessment Panel that a further development approval may not be required to change the office land use to a restaurant land use in the future, and the car parking for a restaurant land use will have a significant negative impact on the local streets surrounding the site. And 4, the Council endorses Mayor Mark Irwin to attend to provide a deputation on Council's behalf at the JDAP meeting to be held on the 27th of August 2021. The reasons for the alternative motion. The Council is very concerned that the development will cause a negative impact on the locality adjoining the property to the south, and that despite the reasons for refusal by the Metro Inner North Joint Development Assessment Panel at its meeting held on the 23rd of March 2021, no real changes have been made to the proposal. Since that meeting, overshadowing has only been reduced by 1.9% from 47% to 45.1% in lieu of the permitted 19.5%. Since that meeting, plot ratio has only been reduced by 0.09 from 1.46 to 1.37 in lieu of the acceptable outcome of 1. And this council resolution replaces the responsible authority report recommendation on this application that is contained within the responsible authority report. I so move.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Ree. Is there anyone opposed to this recommendation? There's no indication, so I will put that. That motion is carried, unanimous. That's all right. It's right, thanks. So that motion is carried unanimous. Hopefully I'll be around. I just should have checked the dates. And we will now go back to the beginning of the agenda. We can get Councillor Farrelly back in. Councillors, will now progress to items for consideration on tonight's agenda, starting with items from the Audit Committee. There are some items in this agenda that will need to be dealt with behind closed doors at the end of the meeting, if they are pulled out, so we'll just deal with them as we get to them. Councillors, are there any items that you wish to pull out from the Audit Committee agenda? Councillor Ree.
Yes, a couple of things which I was going to make an announcement of. I'd like to put in my resignation, please, from the Audit Committee, because I, for a number of reasons...
I just didn't know where you were going there.
Would you like to explain what you were thinking?
There's no Audit Committee before council elections, so there's no need to.
I just don't want to. Anyway, with 12.1 on page 17, which I think that we can discuss around this table, it's just to, I'd like to... So you want to resign, but you still want to talk about these? Well, just to be clear. I don't have to be on every committee to talk on it.
No, I'm just wondering.
Yes, that's right. So 12.1 1A3, and in that, we did have a plan a couple of years ago.
No, you just asked to pull it out.
Yeah, I did ask for
yeah, but we can't debate it now.
Well, I could ask it. It's not confidential, what I'm going to say. Maybe it's just a question then.
Yeah, but we're going through, let's pull them out first. We've got to work out what's getting pulled out before.
Okay.
Or are you asking a question whether you need to pull it out?
Asking the question that years ago we used to have in part of our LEMAC and our emergency management protocols, a system where if, when we had a storm, people got information to say, call your SES, call your advisors, etc. That seemed to disappear, and apparently we're reviewing it. But do we have to wait for so many storms to be reviewed? I just don't follow why this.
Let's get Mr. Quirk to try to help you out.
Done now, please.
Yep.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't aware of that historical communications. As it happens, we do have a LEMAC meeting this Friday, so I think it is timely to have that discussion. I would have thought a simple communication mechanism like that won't be reliant upon the broader review of the local emergency management arrangements in response to Councillor Ree's questions. So, yes, we should be able to deal with that far quicker than the overall review.
Are you happy just to deal with that on Friday morning at LEMAC?
Yes, if it's, I have raised it with Mark Robinson, our officer at LEMAC, but I just question whether or not, if we're looking at the whole
Councillor, but I think, the Director's given assurance it'll be dealt with at LEMAC. So are there any other items that you wish to pull out from Audit Committee. Councillor Sandri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull out the, where is it? The 12.1 CG2.
Thank you. And that item can be dealt with at the end of the meeting. Given that, and with no other indication, the balance of reports, Councillor Lagan, would you like to move the balance of reports with the exception of 12.1 CG2?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the balance of the report with the exception of CG2.
Is there a seconder for that motion, please, councillors? Councillor Perkoff. I will go to the vote then, please. Just Councillor Sandri, thank you. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Members of the gallery and those at home, please be advised the remainder of the Audit Committee recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution. Councillors will now move on to the Planning and Development Committee items. There's some items that are already required to be pulled out. Item 12.2, PRSE1. Item 12.2, 9.1, 9.2, and 9.4 are all required to be pulled out as they need an absolute majority report. Councillor Sandri, you have another one you'd like to pull out?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I was not there at Planning Committee, I need to pull out 12.2 DS1, and I'll just preface a deferral. Thank you.
So that's the first one, 12.2 DS1, yep. Thank you. Councillor Farrelly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I already put a note rec in for 12.1 DS4, normalisation of the Scarborough redevelopment area, but it doesn't seem to be recorded.
12.2 DS4, is it?
Page 89.
Yep. Thank you. Councillor Sargent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 12.3, let's get my words. 12.2 DS3.
12.2. Oh, DS3. Thank you. Is there no other indication? In that case, I will go to item 12.2 DS1. Local Planning Scheme number 3 Scheme Amendment number 115 Omnibus Outcomes of Advertising on page 32. And Councillor Proud as Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the committee recommendation on page 33.
Thank you. And is there a seconder for that motion, committee recommendation? There's Councillor Caddy. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Sandri? Yep, that's right. I will go to Councillor Proud.
I'll reserve.
Thank you. And seconder was Councillor Caddy.
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. So we've got Councillor Sandri first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do apologise. I wasn't at committee last week. Having read it and having discussions with the officers this week, I would like to move a deferral motion to hold this over to the next council meeting for the officers to provide additional information regarding some of the properties in the omnibus amendment.
Sure. Councillor Spagnolo has seconded that. It's a procedural, so I'll put that to the vote. Thank you. Just noting that Councillor Ferrandi has been out of the chamber for this item. And Councillor Lagan has also. That's right. Councillor Migdale, you're in. I think it was just a long question time and they've had to take comfort. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 12.2 DS3, Local Planning Scheme number 3, Amendment number 121, lot number 196, house number 1, Waterloo Street, June Down, being pulled out by Councillor Sargent. Councillor Proud as Chair. I believe there was a white paper on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to move with the white paper, the alternative recommendation. Do you want me to read it out?
I think it's basically to refer, isn't it?
Yes, so refer to 7th of September.
Thank you. And Councillor Sargent seconded that. Well, I assume you were because you're pulling it out. So, Oh, apologies. So you're happy to have the procedural? Yep. All right. So that is a procedural motion to hold it over. That's the officer's white paper that came out, following on from debate at committee. I'll put that to the vote. Thank you. Councillor Farrelly, you just need your vote. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Now, know that Councillor Lagan was out of the chamber. Item 12.2 DS4, normalisation of the Scarborough redevelopment area, has been pulled out by Councillor Farrelly. Councillor Proud as chair of the committee.
I'll move the officer's recommendation on page 90.
Thank you. It's a committee recommendation. Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Caddy has seconded that. Anyone opposed? Councillor Farrelly. Councillor Proud. Happy? Reserve your right, or you'd like to debate? Thank you. Councillor Caddy.
Yes, thank you. Look, the officer's recommendation is for option 2. Option 2 allows us to do 2 really important things. Firstly, it allows us to get a DCP in place, which means that all the money that's been collected from the development contributions already and will be, all the development contributions that have already been collected and will be collected in the future can come to the city, which is anything up to $19 million. Now, that's not what's in the coffers right now, but it is a substantial amount of potential money. We need to make sure that that money can flow back to the city. The second reason is that it allows us to actually make some tweaks to the scheme before it comes back in. And I know that there's been a lot of concern from residents around some of the conditions under which discretionary height is given, and it gives us the opportunity to actually tweak some of those. I think it's really important to understand that when this comes back to council, council is not going to be the decision maker for the developments that the community are concerned about. JDAP is. So I think it's really important that before we rush into just bringing this in-house, that we actually make sure we've got a scheme in place that that supports what we want to see happen down there, because we're not going to be able to exercise discretion ourselves. We're going to have to make sure that the scheme gives JDAP a very clear indication of where we want them to utilise their discretion, or more importantly, where the community wants them to utilise their discretion. I understand that this delays the process by probably about 6 months, but I think that that's important, and it is the officer's recommendation. They have scrutinised this with a lot of rigour. It is their recommendation that this is the best and most effective way to bring this back in. The officers are not trying to delay this process in any way. They are as keen as we are to get this back in-house, but they want to make sure it's done right, and I support the officers in this.
Thank you. Councillor Farrelly, you're opposed?
Yes, I am. I would like to put an alternative recommendation that with the first point, and you have to excuse me taking my glasses on and off.
Yeah. So what you'd like to do is foreshadow.
I would like to foreshadow that point 1, it becomes not the simple normalisation process, it becomes the
administrative one.
Administrative one. That means that the part 2 gets left out and we come to 1 and 2, and the reasons, if I may.
Well, we can't have it. Yeah, we don't need a reason. So what we need to do now. So note that in the original officer's report that came to council, there are 3 options. You're foreshadowing option 1. We now are debating option 2, which is a simple one. So we don't need your reason for your motion because it doesn't exist yet.
I'd like to explain why option 2 is not as good as.
You can debate. You can debate all you like now.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Because I'm very happy with the work that the officers have put into this. There's been a lot of discussion, and there's been a lot of.
Sorry, I just need the substantive motion up on the board, not the. Thank you.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
The reason why I'm looking at the option 1 is that, and I have a couple of questions that to put to the officers. They're coming across on the minutes is that the variations will be The process can include necessary provisions for the city to adopt any of the applicable development policy and design guidelines for the redevelopment area with option 1. So therefore, you have an option available to us that has already been researched that will actually still enable necessary provisions for the city to adopt any of those development policies that are going to work with the master plan area. Now, why I'm proposing that we don't go with option 2 where you have the DCP, I would like to ask, with regard to the DCP, which being transferred in the process, why is it that it cannot be transferred after the normalisation of moving the development of framework into the city has occurred? And I say that because we understand the DCP has not actually provided my co-councillors mentioned the fact that this DCP is based on stories built. It's not based on total stories built. We are going to have 3 oceans proposed. It's proposed at the moment. It's proposing for 46 stories. Of those, only 12. The maximum for that particular site is 12 stories. They are the only stories that will have a levy placed against them. So if you do the maths, 46 minus 12, I'll leave you to think of all those stories, all those building heights that are not going to be charged and put a levy placed on them. That does not come back into the master plan area. So at the moment we've got a DCP...
Point of order.
Sorry, Councillor. Yep, just take a seat for a sec. What's your point of order? Yep, just take a seat. Councillor Caddy, what's your point of order?
The discussion on whether or not we're losing any additional money for the extra stories is irrelevant to the point we're making. That's
Sure.
the construct of the DCP, not whether or not we have a DCP.
Sure, and I think I'll let you continue, Councillor, because I get what you're getting at.
Well, I'm actually proposing, and I have faith in our officers, to have a complete understanding of what a DCP is and how it can be done. And it can be done as a separate means. Why can't it be done as a separate means to bringing the planning framework over? So I'd like to put that to
let's
the
get Mr.
director.
Rodich to talk about why the DCP needs to come over in option 2 or the recommended. Yep.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Farrelly, the reason is that a complex scheme amendment is required to be introduced to introduce this, the DCP into the scheme. It can't happen as part of the administrative process. So if you go with the administrative process, all you bring in over is the planning framework and losing the ability to introduce a developer contribution plan for that area.
I have a further question to that. Why can't the city officers put forward a development contribution plan which would then come to the city, and it could go across all the city in terms of heights, and taking into account that the DCP is holding up moving development approvals into the city by, now my councillor friend here said only 6 months. It's not only 6 months, because you have about 3 to 6 months for this. There would be at least till the end, I thought I heard December 2022. So you've got that time period. Does it matter? Yes, it does, because if you are all followed what's happening in the master plan area, 24 stories has been approved on a 12-storey site. There is also an 8-storey with only 10 car parking bays, 8 stories with 10 car parking bays on West Coast Highway approved. You've got 30 stories on the White Sands Hotel site. 30 stories, of those only 12 will be getting a levy. On the back side of that is the Hastings Street of that 30-storey Woolworths site, and that is going to go up higher than the 8-storey maximum. You will only get a levy for 8 stories. Now, we have a member in this council who is on the liaison committee, but it's a representative only for the liaison committee, not for the council. I, as a coastal councillor, and all the council, that is not their right to...
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Just take a seat. What's your point of order, Councillor?
I've been appointed by this council to sit on the Land Redevelopment Committee. So I represent the view of council, but I cannot participate in voting because I sit on that committee.
Thank you, Councillor. Thanks for clarifying that. Councillor,
Thank you for that clarification. That's the first time you've told me that, Bianca. Sorry, councillor.
Councillor Farrelly, I will just get some answer to your questions, because it's
It's
important.
really,
just let me get some clarification. It's important to note that the current motion that's been put by Councillor Proud and Councillor Caddy seeks to ensure that the development contribution plan comes across. I think you're aware of that. But it's that very developer contribution plan that you've just argued that is so important. Yet you're asking for the development contribution not to come across. So just to be clear though, in the meantime, there could potentially be several developments that get approved that don't have any development contribution or contribution to the City of Stirling. I'll get Mr Roddick just to provide some clarity.
Can I just ask in regard to that? I believe that once the development approval process has started, such as Three Oceans and the 18-storey at Brighton Road, they will come across because they will be part of that, and we're missing out on a whole lot of.
Yes, but I think we need clarity because there are other repercussions with option one, the administrative, in terms of not being able to bring the DCP across without a complex amendment, and that then there won't be any DCP attached to those developments. Mr Roddick?
Through the Chair, that's exactly correct, Mr Mayor. Without bringing the DCP across and just a planning framework, any development approved under that would not be subject to a DCP, and it would be questionable if Council at a future date try to introduce a DCP after the planning framework has already been put in place into the scheme.
If I could ask the Director of Planning, the current, through you, Mr Chair, the current development approvals that have been approved and the ones that have now going for consultation and will go, basically have started the development approval process, will their development contribution levies still go to the city regardless of whether that, process is stopped and we go with option one?
Mr Roddick?
Through the Chair, if they are determined by Development WA.
Councillor?
Well, that really doesn't tell us anything, does it? And this is the problem, I think, that we've got another body that can decide to do something quite different. I would have thought you would have said, as there is a commitment to that levy distribution to the city, that we would be assured, even though it's only up to that maximum height, of that levy being distributed to the city, regardless of whether the city was no longer continuing to not get involved in the total development approval process. There are a number of sites, I was going to have them put up here, but with all the other things happening with interest and stuff in this, I haven't. But there is a number of approvals that are going
Councillor,
up.
I just need to, you will need an extension of time. You've gone over time. It's okay, but we just need an extension. Moved Councillor Proud, seconded Councillor Reid. Just a show of hands, councillors. If you're happy with an extension of time, that is unanimous.
Thank you. Look, I'm also, and I'm sorry to Councillor Sandri, because in the outburst I made, I don't discredit her abilities to represent the development, the ward in the development liaison. Sorry, my phone went dead. So all those.
Just point of order, City of Stirling interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. But it is a really a question of how long do you think the community and the neighbourhood and the area of the master plan in Scarborough can continue to see the ignorance of the master plan agreement and the variances now that are being applied to the heights, to the setbacks, to the shadowing that are going to now continue to approximately December 2022. I know that the development contribution levy is important, but the value to that DCP to the city, as opposed to the value of what is going to happen to the area, the master plan area in the City of Stirling, and they are all ratepayers, the value of that is going to diminish. Already you go down Brighton Road, for instance, which is the 18-storey proposed site, and already we've got a number of those rises of 12-storey that have actually fitted into what we had in the master plan, so everyone knew that was going to happen, but they are shadowing the road in the morning. Now, you actually are looking at changing the ambience. You're looking at also giving no reliability in what is going to go on for the next 18 months in the master plan area of Scarborough. The way Development WA is going, I think we need to cut it out of the system. I have had requests from the community as well, but the real thing is the planning director has actually made me quite anxious about the fact that we can't give any guarantees that the development levy that's being collected and is going to continue, I hope, to be collected for these bills that are in the approval stage we may not see it.
No, I don't. That's not clear. I think it's very important that the officer's recommendation in the original report made it very clear that, as you've outlined, it's a very complicated process, and that's why it's got to be done properly. And the DCP does have to be brought across, so the council does receive the proper development contribution plan. But I'll get Mr. Roddick again just to clarify. There were some questions in there regarding if a development's already been put through Development WA, where does a contribution plan go for that, given the different options, whether we go option 1 or option 2?
Currently, if a contribution is required for a development that is determined, that will return to the city as part of that developer contribution plan. It's only when the applications are determined. There's no change to that. And I think all we're saying is if we bring back go through the normalisation process, bringing back the planning framework through option 1, the administrative process, we lose the developer contribution plan, and then that's not enforced on any development which comes under that framework when it comes under the normalisation. At the moment, it still is.
Can I ask then, why can't the city do its own DCP?
Yep. That is the option that's on the move, Councillor Proud, Councillor Caddy.
That's modifying a current DCP, but you keep that DCP with Development WA and you still get your earnings from it. Why can't the city, I know it's really...
It needs a complex scheme amendment, we've been told that.
Yeah, it's a complex thing, but it also has an impact, and this is what we're forgetting. Why we don't act on these more complex remedies, we're actually looking at an area in the city of Stirling being totally destroyed by a building authority that has no desire to consider the people that are residing there or in the future will be residing there, because they are not complying with the agreed master plan.
Thank you, Councillor. That's the end of debate. Yep. Is there anyone else who'd like to debate this item? If not, I will go back to Councillor Proud to close debate if you'd like to.
Just briefly, I understand Councillor Farrelly's angst. I truly do. It's really frustrating for her. And the thing is, this is a complex process. We need to go through it, as the Director for Planning has said. It's a process. Now, in the end, I guess maybe there's going to be some of the items that might be out of our control at the moment. How high, how much money, whatever. What's to be remembered too is Development WA, or prior to that MRA, the state government put quite considerable millions, more than the City of Stirling, into the Scarborough redevelopment area. And they want a piece of that action back, as so do we. So this is the process that we're going through with the DCP. So the idea is to go through the process methodically and let the officers do what they're trained for, what they get paid for, what they're specialists at. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, that does close debate. Noting that Councillor Farrelly has foreshadowed option 2, the one we will put up is Councillor Proud and Councillor Caddy. So if I can go to the vote, please, on that one. We've got a couple to go. I've got Councillor Perkoff and Councillor Hatton, I think, to vote. Councillor Perkoff? Just check. Your little green man isn't lit up. That's it. That's all right. Yep. Thank you. That motion is carried. For, we have Councillors Caddy, Ferrante, Hatton, Lagan, Migdale, Perkoff, Proud, Sandri, Sargent and myself. And against Councillor Farrelly, Ree, Spagnolo and Thornton. Thank you, councillors. We'll now go to item 12.2, PRSE1, variation to lease of the Mount Lawley Golf Club. Absolute majority vote is required on this one. Councillor Proud as chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the recommendation. As per committee recommendation, it was unanimous at committee to page 214. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone to second? Okay. Councillor Migdale. It is called Mount Lawley, so I'll go to Mount Lawley. Oh, it's Lawley. I know it's Lawley. Yeah, okay. Is there anyone opposed to this? Just a quick question.
If I may, I'm just concerned about on page 218.
You can't start a question with "I'm concerned about." That's debate.
Okay, I question
Thank you.
on page 218 whether it's compliant with the Local Government Act for this council to issue a lease to go to 2044.
Yes, it is.
Well,
It was brought up at committee and talked about. It is compliant. If that's your only concern, I guarantee it is compliant.
because I went to a while ago talk that said you
I
can't
promise you
do
it's
more than
compliant.
4 years.
Let's not debate it. It was a question, and I guarantee it's compliant.
Okay. Scary, but okay.
It's not scary at all. It's compliant. So no one opposed. I will put that. Yeah, it's a pleasant thought, councillor. If we can just check those votes. We've got a couple to go. Councillor Spagnolo. There you go. There we go. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 12.29.1, strategic direction for Careen, absolute majority vote. I believe there is an alt-rec, confidential alt-rec. So we might take that one. I know that Councillor Hatton has an alternative rec, and it probably this one has to go behind closed doors because it's to do with property. So we will come back to that one behind closed doors, as I said. And if we go to 12.29.2, strategic direction of Balcatta, absolute majority vote is required. Councillor Proud is chair of the committee.
Shall we hold that over as well? It's confidential?
No, because it's just an absolute majority vote, so there's no one opposed or pulled it out.
Oh, okay. Okay, move as per the committee recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. And seconded Councillor Hatton. And no one opposed. We'll go to the vote. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. And 12.29.4, the early access agreement to main roads Western Australia on the Cedric Street, Stirling. This is an absolute majority vote as well. It hasn't been pulled out by councillor, so chair of the committee, Councillor Proud. Page 229, confidential agenda 129.
Wasn't clearing. Yes, I'll move as per the committee recommendation, page 229. Thank you.
Thank you. And a seconder for that, Councillor Hatton. There you go. There's no one opposed. I'll put that. Thanks, councillors. Let's get through it. Councillor Lagan, Proud. I've got. Councillor Proud, have you voted? Thank you. And that is unanimous, councillors. I will now ask that the balance of reports, Councillor Proud, if you could move those with the exception of the 12.29.1. Is that right?
Thank you. I'll move the balance of reports with the exception, as you mentioned, 12.29.1. Thank you.
I'll go to the deputy if you want a second. No, or Councillor Caddy to second those, and just go to the vote, please. Just one more, if we can have Councillor Farrelly. Thank you. That is unanimous. Members of the gallery and those at home, please be advised the remainder of the Planning and Development Committee recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution. Takes us to item 13, reports for consideration in accordance with section 4.24 of the Meeting Procedures Local Law. And we go to item 13.1, lot 10, house number 88, Robert Street, Osborne Park, 11 warehouses and 1 office. Do I have a mover of a recommendation? Councillor Thornton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got some questions, but overall I support the report, the officer's report, and...
So you're moving... Oh, sorry, I think we've got... Let me just check. So, Councillor Migdale is leaving the chamber, and Councillor Farrelly and Councillor Ree have also left due to JDAP. Yeah, it's not you, sorry.
You've got some questions, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got some questions.
Yeah, sure, we're just waiting for people to leave the chamber because we can't talk. Yep, so... Yep, Councillor Thornton has... Can we get that off the screen so we can seat. So Councillor Thornton has put the recommendation with some questions. Is there a seconder for her motion? Councillor Spagnolo, is there anyone opposed? I'll allow your questions. There's no one opposed.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a question around the embayed parking. Embayed parking's not really conducive to a shared path, and I'd just like to know what we can do to ensure that we're going to configure an adequate shared path, because it is an access and egress point along to the principal shared path.
Yep. Mr Rodich?
Through you, Mr Mayor, thanks Councillor Thornton for the question. As per condition 3 of the recommendation of the Responsible Authority report, that those embayed parking bays along Roberts are to be removed. Therefore, a footpath or a shared path may be considered for the city in the future. So the engineers had a look at it and determined that there wasn't sufficient space in that road reserve to allow for the embayed parking. So a condition of approval of our recommendation to the JDAP is that those embayed parking bays are removed from the development.
Happy with that?
Yep. Can I make a couple of comments, or
Quick ones, yes.
quick ones?
Sort of
Thank
like
you.
questions.
Sort of like questions?
Yeah.
Well, they're not.
Just be smart about it. There's no debate, so just have an upward inflection at the end of your statement if you can.
I can't really turn these into questions. It's more of a...
Just get on with it, councillor. Just go.
Okay. I just want to be frank with everybody in this chamber. I believe that this was a missed opportunity for the city. This area was identified as public open space in 2013 through extensive public consultation. Just for a bit of context, this area's only got 2% open space. Some people think that's adequate. That definitely isn't. It's deficiency. And also it's got poor canopy. And I appreciate that the applicant is retaining one of the trees on his site and also allowing for the other tree to be retained too. And the community is grateful for that. But there's also the other trees there, and there's also the wildlife that use these trees for habitat. There's been threatened species observed there as well. I just think it has been a missed opportunity that we could be having a beautiful public open space there. Thank you.
Thank you. Noted. Yep. Yeah. It's sort of upward at the end. It was good. No. So we have a motion. There's no one opposed. Move Councillor Thornton, seconded Councillor Spagnolo. Noting that 3 councillors are out of the room, we'll go to the vote. So I think we need... Yep, that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Is it only 3 out of the room? Yeah, noting that Councillor Perkoff walked out of the chamber and wasn't involved in the vote as well, please. So there's 4 out. And they'll be asked back in. Item 13.2 has been dealt with already on page 237. So that takes us to item 14, which is motions of which previous notice has been given. We're just waiting for councillors to come back in. There's a couple of them. And so Councillor Farrelly has returned. Councillor Perkoff has returned. Okay, so we'll go to item 14.1. Is there a mover of a motion, please? Councillor Sandri.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am happy to move the officer's suggested alternative recommendation on 248. However, just a very quick comment. The map on page 249 is incorrect. The notice motion is very specific between Clifton, Robinson and Beaufort. This is taking the areas all the way to Hamer, so that needs to be reduced. But Mr Littleton's not in the room, so he didn't hear that. So if someone else can let him know. Thank you.
That's noted, and can we just make sure that gets picked up and passed on? Councillor Lagan has seconded that motion. Is anyone opposed? If not, I'll put that motion, noting that Councillor Mcdale is still not back in the chamber. That motion is carried. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll now go to item 14.2, notice of motion for Councillor Elizabeth Ree. Is there a mover of the motion, please? Councillor Ree, it's on your suggested Alt Rex 252. The item is on 250, if that helps.
Thank you. I will go with the additional seating and safety lighting to be installed around the Pony Club on Herdsman to address the increased use of facilities, and I could just put a dash and say the City of Stirling vested property, if you like, because that would negate the one by the city, which says that they would write. Where I'm not talking about the calm land, I'm just talking about the city vested land.
Would you like us to still write and...
Well, only if we put the additional lighting and sitting. So if we go my number 1, the additional seating and safety lighting to be installed around the Pony Club, and then number 2. So we could put my number 1 and their number 2 together. That would be good.
No. Well, I think they're very different. I think there was a reason why the seating wasn't installed around the Pony Club.
It's the fact that the Pony Club, the area of the Pony Club is small, so you can get it inside our boundary or outside as well. So we could do both if you wanted to.
No, but I think
that way, I think...
I'll just get clarification. I just recall in the report there's a reason the seating wasn't inside and the reason we were going to the biodiversity. So I'll get officers. Mr. Littleton's reaching for the button.
Yeah, look, I'm reaching. It's an item that we've prepared. I believe that that the resolution, the alternative resolution, was framed largely because the understanding was that the seating was outside of the leased area. If Councillor Ree is suggesting that she's looking for seating inside the leased area, then we can certainly have a look at that. I'm happy to take that offline and see what locations Councillor Ree is specifically referring to.
So I think in that case, you're better off probably just going with your initial one, and we'll just, look, Councillor, we'll just take it on note that if there is a reason that comes up that it can't be done internally, then we'll follow up and write. I think we can do that. So,
Mr. Mayor, I think that's right. I did speak to the staff about it. It is a smaller area. But we can do outside as well. There's nothing to write. We're writing constantly to BCA to say increase the amount of chairs. So I think that's a given, unless you haven't written since you've been in the chair. But
I've done a lot of writing, so I can't recall.
My apologies.
No, I get it. We get it. So let's get the recommendation. That's it. And we'll do what needs to be done. And is there a seconder? Councillor Proud. Is there anyone opposed? We'll put that motion.
Mr. Mayor, I wonder, could I say something? Just a comment? I'm obviously in support of this.
No, I don't think we need more comments, do we?
Well,
there's no one opposed.
No, I understand. It's the Perth Horse and Pony Club. And the only other thing I did...
There's not too many pony clubs on Herdsman I'm aware of, Councillor.
They just need to be addressed correctly. We all like to be called our right name, our correct names.
Thanks.
There was another point. The seating, and I don't know how savvy whether the DPOR or whoever knows which end the hay goes in and which end it comes out. However, on their event days of dressage, hacking and show jumping...
Councillor, Councillor, sit down, please. This can be taken offline. It's nothing to do with this motion. It can be taken offline. We can work out where the horses go and the ponies go and where the seats go.
I'm talking about horse floats.
Well, we'll now put... we'll now put the motion... Councillor Thornton and Proud. There we go, and that is unanimous. Thanks, councillors. And 14.3, notice of motion, Councillor Bianca Sandri on the shared electric scooter facilities in the City of Stirling on page 253. Councillor Sandri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation on page 257 with the removal of electric bicycle, as that was not my notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you. This is very specific. I did witness Councillor Sandri on electric scooters. She's not too bad on them either. Councillor Migdal, I had you first. As seconding, is there anyone opposed? Councillor Farrelly, you're opposed?
It would be good to have the electric bike put in somewhere, even if it's 0.2.
So councillors, to how about I deal with this? Thanks. Councillors, are you happy to have the bicycles left in, given that it's to ask for a feasibility study? Okay, in that case, I will leave it as opposition at this stage. Councillor Sandri, if you'd like to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, the intention of the notice of motion was regarding shared scooter, electric scooters. I do not wish to include bicycles in the mix of this because I feel like bicycles have more of amenity concerns on our streetscapes. They're larger, they're harder to install, and when left along the roadways, it is not comfortable. With a scooter, they have a little app. You click the app, you can leave your scooter wherever it is and move on, and someone else comes and collects it. Where with bicycles, from my experience travelling the world, you have to go put them back in place at a locker section. Yeah. So scooters are more accessible, they're easier to use, and my view is that I really wanted the notice of motion to seriously consider all elements of the city for shared scooter, and then if that evolved later to bicycles, then fine. It's just that I feel like we wouldn't be getting the right degree of scrutiny in terms of feasibility around these types of different modes of transport if we're including multiple things, and it opens up debate around that. But anyway, that's just my view, and I appreciate if councillors have a different view, you can move an amendment to my notice of motion and that can form part of the substand if that's what you would like to do. If I can note, seeing as I have opened, can I please ask that this report is undertaken by Economic Development team? It's just because I think that that's the integral part from a tourism perspective as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Migdale.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I wholeheartedly concur with Councillor Sandri on this, and I can't wait, and I'm very hopeful that I will get to see the report on this, because the level of activation that these scooters can bring to any hub is incredible, and it's time that we see this level of activation occurring. I completely concur that at this stage the exclusion of the bikes makes sense. So,
Councillor
support.
Farrell, or who did I have opposed? Councillor Farrelly, I think I had opposed. Was it, or Councillor Caddy?
Both, I think.
No, I need to find out who I had as opposed. Did we have it recorded? Okay. We'll start with Farrelly and we'll work down.
All right. Look, I am aware that the tourism precinct that we had a study on, that the gentleman came over from Queensland, the tourism precinct is really Scarborough. And we do have other precincts in the city of Stirling which could also be energised and innovatively have tourism type components. But if we're looking at the area which I'm aware of, and that's the ward, the coastal ward,
Councillor Farrelly, I think your debate here is bordering on a little bit.
All right, let's put it another way.
This isn't to single out any particular ward, it's across the city.
Doing an economic appraisal of the appropriateness of shared scooter facilities within the city of Stirling. An economic appraisal of all electric facilities, such as skateboards, such as bikes, surely is part and parcel of looking at what is going to support tourism and movability. We've already got bike paths in which our skateboards can travel on. Thank you very much, Mr. Councillor
Farrelly. Councillor Farrelly.
I can't talk
down
over
here.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, seriously, look, I understand that scooters have got a certain palaver about them.
Sorry, councillors. Councillors, come on.
Look, scooters are fantastic, but there's a certain age group that does scooters. They're not the thing for a more mature age group necessarily. You are looking, though, at electric bikes, and I ride one. You're looking at electric skateboards with my gym instructor rides. Those are all happening around Scarborough, for instance, and along the coastal pathways and through the Scarborough Beach Road, which has no bicycle path, so we use the road or we use a horrible footpath. But they are something that we should be looking at in regard to how does it impact on tourism. And I'm recalling the tourism report was talking about Scarborough as being the most, excuse me, Councillor Perkoff, Scarborough was
Councillor
the...
Farrelly, through the chair, I just want to clarify, it is important with this motion to have a look at the wording. This isn't about people, the usability of electric...
Undertake a review...
Excuse me.
and feasibility study.
Yeah, no, listen, it's not about the usability of all the different modes of electric transport. This is about shared scooter facilities. This is a particular shared scooter company where people tap their phone, tap on it. It's not about riding them. I just want to make that clear.
Look, I'm sorry if that I did get a bit distracted. You're quite right for putting me back on task.
I usually am. Keep going.
But when you look at what we have available to start with, so you're reviewing, and it's a feasibility study, you will look at what is the available facilities. At the moment, we do have bike paths. At the moment, we do have bikes using the bike paths and skateboards. Yes, it is going to possibly be a bit more of a structure which you have to put your bike in. And I know there are cities like Melbourne which have pulled back a bit from these things. However, we surely can include those if we're going to look at the bigger and more, I look at the scooter as something that's a roadworthy vehicle, and where do you put those? I mean, you do the same thing, I suppose. You lock them and off you go and you grab them, but you can do that with a bike too.
Thank you. Councillor Caddy, you were next.
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, a question. So, why do we need to undertake a review and feasibility study? And why I'm asking that is because I'm supportive of shared scooter facilities, but it's usually something a private company does. I don't want to see the city providing shared scooter facilities when there's plenty of commercial operators out there. So what's the purpose of us doing a review and feasibility study?
I would assume a lot of it has to do with legislation, etc. But Mr. Littleton.
Clarification on that one first.
Mr. Littleton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, the goals of the sorts of things that need to be identified. It's important to recognise that. Didn't think this would be overly contentious. Sorry, but we have certainly been approached around electric scooters and electric bikes. It is a range of issues that we need to undertake a review over. The tourism community destinations that we are looking to access, survey of existing and proposed infrastructure within these locations, or new infrastructure which would be required to ensure viability of such a program, potential business models for the program's operation, policy and planning considerations, and a demand analysis and potential social and economic benefits. It is a review that would need to be undertaken by lots of different areas within our business. We do articulate who those are, and economic development are certainly a critical component of that. There is also a leasing requirement, so invariably we will need to identify available land to be able to enable commercial businesses to be able to operate from potentially a number of different destinations. So all of those are the sorts of things that will be undertaken through this review.
Councillor Caddy.
Yeah, okay. I think feasibility study is probably stretching it. A feasibility study to me implies we're going to be outlaying money. So I understand now that the intent is more what I would consider a technical review and understanding what policy we need to put in place. If that's the intent, then I'm okay with that.
That's the intent. Right.
Right, okay. And look, I am happy to move an amendment that I guess is going to need to be debated, that that bicycles are included, electric bikes are included as part of this as well, because otherwise we're just going to be coming back and doing it separately.
Yep. Is there a seconder for that? Yep. Councillor Farrelly. Yep. Yeah, it's just want to talk amongst yourselves. This is just an amendment. Yep. So the electric bicycles. Councillors, I think we can just test the amendment. I think it's pretty clear what everyone's debating here in terms of the scooter. I think this is the item. So If you're happy to, I think we can just test the amendment, yeah? And if we can just go to the vote, if you're happy for that to be added into the substantive motion, that's a vote. That is carried, so it becomes part of the substantive, noting that the electric bicycle and scooter will all be reviewed. They will be taken separately and very intensive on the scooter as well. Okay, you happy with that? All right, Councillor Thornton, did you want to... Councillor Thornton, you indicated earlier, did you want to debate this item, or was that what you wanted to...
No, I'm happy with the amendment.
All right, is there anyone else who'd like to debate now that's seen? Councillor Ferrante?
Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question, Mr Mayor, and through the chair, I'd like to ask the officers to consider, when you're talking about electric bikes, I think the Department of Transport went out to public consultation in regards to some of the speeds of electric bikes and how they fit moving forward into the cycle paths, etc. So I don't know about you guys, but I've seen some speeds of electric bikes and they almost should be on the road. Anyway, it needs to be reviewed, and I just wanted to add that as we've put this in now.
And that's noted, and certainly, look, the scooters can go up to 60, 70 k's an hour too, so it'll certainly be that's part of the review. Councillor Sargent, did you indicate before?
I did.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
You'd like to be part of the trial, is it?
Why not? The last city I was in, Mr Mayor, it was great to see these scooters facilities in operation, and I do take offence to the age comment that Councillor Farrelly did make, because I witnessed all age groups using these scooters to get to and from work or wherever they were going.
I don't know if any offence was met though, Councillor. Just yeah.
I took offence.
Is that your debate, or you like?
No. I do agree with Councillor Sandry when we need to be cautious with bicycles, because they are a lot bigger, and one of the first complaints I remember when these things started popping up around the world is people used to just randomly put them anywhere, and companies, which I'm hoping are a lot better today at it, were struggling to keep up with the demand, keep up going out there, keep up picking up these things, which led to major complaints by the community having all these bikes and scooters all over the place. So that would be my worry, that if we have too many of these and people are just dumping them wherever they want to go. What does surprise me though is, why hasn't it been taken up in Perth before? I see it all over the world, and Perth City would be the most brilliant place for this kind of thing to actually happen, yet it's never got off the ground. And I can only think that perhaps this is why the review and feasibility study needs to be done, is there's regulation in place. Some boffin, someone along the line said, no. And it hasn't actually hasn't happened. So I think it's important to do that review, just so we're not going down this path just to run up against some legislation that's already been passed that we're not aware of. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And I'm sure that's part of the review. It could also be that no one's had the foresight of Councillor Sandry and Councillor Migdale in groundbreaking electric scooters in WA. Councillor Proud.
Sort of a thought bubble. First of all, Councillor Sargent sort of just leant over there. Have we not ever been approached for an operator? And Councillor Caddy mentioned that too. This isn't something we want to go into business of. There's plenty of businesses that do this. I just don't know where they are. So first up, would the review / feasibility study, would that be, why wouldn't we just go out to an expression of interest and see what's out there and let them come to us?
But I think this isn't about the business. The review isn't about the running the business, so I can answer that. The review is about understanding the legislative requirements around this, why it hasn't been done before in Perth, if it can be limited to certain areas, how it will impact tourism, how it will impact the residents where bikes and scooters are left outside the house. All that has to be considered before the businesses take it up. That will all form part of the review. All the comments will take it on board. Is there anyone else who'd like to debate? If not, I'll go to Councillor Sandry to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was very brief in my opening and I'll be very brief in my closing. But I think the review, or whatever you want to call it, is required because there needs to be rules and parameters around these if we intend to allow businesses to place them within the City of Stirling. I'd also like to just ensure that, you know, we look beyond the City of Stirling as well. So there's an integration that could be considered with local governments along the coast to be able to get people from Hillary's to Scarborough down to Fremantle. And in addition to that, the CBD along through Beaufort Street to Inglewood, so bringing people from the CBD right through Mount Lawley and then into Inglewood as well. So we have to think about these things on a broader scale. It's not just about one specific suburb. It's about people coming to our area through alternative means. And I will just note that they're a lot of fun, the scooters, and I think they're more fun than the electric bicycles. So I way prefer the scooters, but anyway, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, here. So with that, a closed debate. Move Councillor Sundry, seconded Councillor Migdale. If you can go to the vote, please, councillors. Yes. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Part of the fleet eventually, Mr Littleton. So that brings us to item 15, notice of motion for consideration at the next meeting. Councillors, would you like to submit any notice of motion for consideration at the next meeting? Councillor Ree.
Thank you. Don't know where my motion is.
Well, we are before the
Oh, got that. I've found it. The city considers the use of antiviral and antibacterial screen and surface protectors to mitigate against the transfer of communicable diseases as part of the future risk management strategies. The risk in the transfer of communicable diseases has put an increased burden on staff to ensure city assets are clean, and the issues surrounding allergies to cleaning items is becoming more apparent. The inclusion of an antiviral, antibacterial screens and surfaces may address the issues in the future. That's
okay,
one.
And your next one?
That the council cites, where am I? The council cites that every age counts pledge at the next council meeting to show their value and respect to all ages, especially older people. Namely, I stand for a world without ageism, where all people of all ages are valued and respected and their contributions are acknowledged. I commit to speak out and take action to ensure oldest people can participate on equal terms with others in all respects of life.
Thank you. And do you want to add scooters or anything into that?
No.
No, okay.
As
Thank you, councillor.
No, but
okay.
if they choose, they should have the right.
Any other, I think Councillor Thornton, did you have one? Yep. I'll get to you all. It's all right.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to give notice of motion, where is it? Here. That a report be presented to council identifying key considerations and costs associated with utilising a portion of the public car park at lot 340 and lot 4, house number 223 and 223A, Main Street, Osborne Park, for a pop-up public plaza trial. Piazza's better than plaza.
Piazza trial. That's right. That's right. That's all right. The intent's the same,
No,
I think.
it's going to be moved forward.
Thank you. And
Yeah, it's
Councillor
slightly
Migdale, you've indicated? That's the corner of Main Street and Royal.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Two notices of motion. The first one is that in response to recent storm events, the city continues to complete drainage catchment analysis over its network and prepares a prioritised program of works to continue to improve its drainage systems.
And next one.
And the next one, that the Mayor writes to the Public Transport Authority and the local member seeking feedback on the demand for a circular clipper bus service travelling to and from the city using either Beaufort Walcott Fitzgerald or Beaufort Central Alexander.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is no cat bus, and that's what we're exploring.
Okay. Well, let's not debate it yet. We might not need it if we've got scooters down there. Okay. Are there any other notice of motions? If not, we'll continue on. Thank you, councillors. Item 16.1, questions on notice that are on the agenda on page 259. Item 17, new business of an urgent nature of nil. Item 18, matters behind closed doors. Councillor, can I have a mover to go behind closed doors? Councillor Proud, seconded Councillor Lagan. If we can go to the vote, please, to go behind closed doors to deal with these items. Thank you, councillors. If we can have the doors closed, please. Those who are with us, please note we've got 3 items to address this evening.
Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au /dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au /dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing animals. Learn more about being AU/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting www.sterling.wa.gov.au/dogs. Properly controlling dogs at all times is the most effective way to prevent attacks. This means keeping your dog close to you and not allowing it to bother other people or animals. Learn more about being a responsible dog owner by visiting
We can have the doors open. I don't know if anyone's left. Councillors, the live stream is back on, and the doors are being opened. And that brings us to, councillors? We're okay to proceed. So that does bring us to item 19, which is closure of the meeting, and I declare the meeting closed at 10:28 p.m. Thank you.